Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Ravel Martinez with another tip for us foreign graduate veterinarians going through the ECFPG process to get licensed here in the US. Today's set of tips will be continuation of CPE surgery tips. Right now we're at CPE surgery tips number 6. So, first tip for today. So far we're on the closure of our main incision. So, when you're practicing with regards to closing the linea, closing the body wall, I would suggest practicing your incision typically it would be a banana peel. Banana peel would be what I was used to when I was in vet school, but I discovered something else that might be a better option. It depends on which one you like, but I have so far had great success with using the pool noodle. So the pool noodle, it's very inexpensive. You get it from the dollar store. You make a long incision right there, and then you practice closing long incisions using the pool noodle. Of course, if that is not an option that you prefer, another option would be to get a leg of like a pork leg. You can sometimes get it on the regular grocery store, or if there's an Asian store close by, that's where I usually get my pig leg when I was trying to use it as well for practice. There are also options that you can buy to practice closure of the incisions. So there are models that you can buy online as well. Whichever one would help you practice, especially for long incisions, just in case, you end up with a very long incision for the body wall. Always good to practice how you handle the instruments, how you manipulate the tissue for ease of doing the suture when you're done, when you're closing. The other thing that I noticed some students or some people starting up with surgery is they would, after the first loop, when you start your closure with your suture, after the first loop, some people would try to tighten that first throw really good, and it's not ideal, in my opinion, for you to tighten that way too much, because you don't want pinching of the muscle layer as well. So what I would recommend is just make sure it opposes on the first throw, and then on the second or third throw, that's when you tighten that knot. The first throw is only to oppose. The second, third, and the succeeding throws are the ones to secure. Just don't go tightening it too fast or too much when it's just the first throw, and pinching that tissue as much as possible. If it's irritating, if it's pinched, it will cause discomfort for our patients. So as you are closing the first layer, sometimes people would end that first layer, the closure, with, especially if it's simple continuous, and by tying the loop and the free end together. So that's perfectly fine, but you'll end up, after you cut it, you'll end up with 3 tips of that suture. The option that I'm liking right now would be to use an Aberdeen knot. If you still don't know how to do an Aberdeen knot, you can look them up online. There are several videos that you can look at and you can study to do an Aberdeen knot. But it's a better option, in my opinion, because after you do an Aberdeen knot, you only have one cut tip of the suture, which is not as pokey as if you would have 3 ends of the cut suture if you tie the knot and the free end together. And what I typically would do is I would make that Aberdeen knot parallel to the incision so that it doesn't poke towards the skin. So again, if you don't know how to do an Aberdeen knot, look him up online, and then I might post it on my Facebook, but look it up online and see how you can do it. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So moving on with the second layer of closure, which is the subcutaneous closure. So make sure when you're doing your sub-Q closure that you're biting on the main linea as well, so that you don't have as much dead space. So bite always, also bite occasionally on that linea so that you don't have as much free space. The other thing to remember though is when you're doing that, make sure if you're doing a sub-Q closure that you don't go through the skin, because if you end up going through the whole line of that sub-Q closure and you find after you've knotted it that there is one that pokes out, that's not going to be good. That's highly likely to leave an abscess if you don't redo your closure. So you'll end up doing it all over again. So right before you finish that sub-Q closure, make sure that none of the suture is poking through the skin so that you don't have to untie it and then do it all over again. When you're doing the intradermal layer, some people would still use their thumb forceps to pinch or grab the skin layer, and I advise against it. It just causes too much trauma to the skin and it will leave a mark. So avoid using the thumb forceps on the skin. What I would recommend is practicing, let's say this is the incision, practicing on pressing against that skin with your two fingers while this other hand is suturing it so that you flatten that skin, and then you don't necessarily need to grab it with a thumb forceps for you to get the needle through it. So practice, just press it, and always let the needle work for you. Let the needle be the one to dig into the tissue, and then as you practice doing it, you'll get the hang of it to not focus too much on the tissue that you're holding, but letting the needle do its job to go in and out of that subcuticular layer or intradermal layer. Practice makes perfect, and for some, practice makes permanent. So practice as much as you can. Make sure to try to learn how to do the Aberdeen knot, and make sure to not tighten the first throw, whether or not you're starting your closure or ending it. Always use that first throw to oppose the tissue, but never to tighten it too much and cause irritation for the pet. So that's the end of the tips for today. If you have any questions, you can always message me on Facebook, or you can add me up on Facebook. Mine is DVM Rovel. That's ROV as in Victor EL. And I can answer your questions there. I will try to post as much pictures, as much links on my Facebook page to help, because I'm not good yet at doing like actual videos. I'll try tomorrow. I have a big spay tomorrow, but I'll try to get as much pictures as possible and maybe videos. Again, to everyone studying for their ECFVG, for their NAVLE to get licensed here in the US, good luck to everyone. You're almost there. Keep on doing it, and sooner or later you'll be licensed here in the US. Thank you very much, and happy studying, everyone. Bye-bye.